going to be from 0 to infinity. And remember, the probability of x is equal to the combination of x plus r minus 1, combination r minus 1, p power x into 1 minus p power r. So the summation for mean it will be x times the probability of x is x times x plus r minus 1, combination r minus 1, p power x into 1 minus p power r. Then we are going to sum them up, and remember it's from 0, x is equal to 0 to infinity. X times p, then to the summation of x is equal to 0 to infinity, x times x plus r minus 1, combination r minus 1, p power x, 1 minus p. Since it's from 0 to infinity, on our next step we are going to affect this summation with a 0, x from 0 to infinity. This is the x, then into x plus r minus 1, r minus 1, p power x into 1 minus p power r. And then since we have affected this with a 0, so our next summation will be starting from a 1. So it will be x is equal to 1 to infinity into x plus r minus 1, combination r minus 1, p power x into 1 minus p power r. So this one will vanish because it's multiplied by a 0. So now on the next step we shall start with this one only. Summation of x is equal to 1 to infinity, x times x into x plus r minus 1, combination r minus 1, p power x, p into 1 minus p power r. So now next step we are going to change the combination into factorial. So the summation of x is equal to 1 up to infinity is going to be x plus r minus 1 factorial out of r minus 1 factorial times x plus r minus 1 minus r minus 1, the whole thing factorial, then times p power x times 1 minus p power r. So if you realize this r will go with this one, and then this negative one will go with this positive one. So the whole thing we are going to remain with x is from 1 to infinity into x plus r minus 1 infinity factorial out of r minus 1 factorial. This will be x factorial, and then p power x, 1 minus p power r. So in our next step we are going to split the powers and at the same time expand the x factorial. So it will be like x from 1 to infinity. We are going to now expand the powers. So you make this one look power 1 x minus 1. So if you multiply this one, it will go back to this one, and then into 1 minus p power negative 1 and 1 power negative 1 and 1 minus p power r plus 1. So when you add this one to get back to this one, then remember we are this x. Remember we are expanding the x factorial into x minus 1, r minus factorial, r minus 1 factorial. So realize this x will go with this one, and then this one is a constant, and then this one is also a constant, so we shall pull them outside the summation. So it will be p into 1 minus p power negative 1, then summation of x from 1 to infinity. This x has gone, so we shall start from x plus r minus 1 factorial out of r minus 1 factorial, x minus 1 factorial, then this p power x minus 1 into 1 minus p r plus 1. So at this point we shall remove this r minus 1 factorial and put it out, which is going to be 1 minus p or negative 1, then the summation of x from 1 to infinity, 1 out of r minus 1 factorial, this one, then we affect it with 1 plus r minus 1 factorial out of x minus 1 factorial times p or x minus 1 to 1 minus p r plus 1. So this thing is the same as when you apply an r everywhere, r into r minus 1 factorial, and this r into r minus 1 factorial is the same as r factorial, so it's going to be r into r factorial. So when you get this one, you replace it with this one. Our next step will look like 1 minus p or negative 1, then summation from x is equal to 1 to infinity, r into x plus r minus 1 factorial out of r factorial into x minus 1 factorial, then times p minus 1 into 1 minus p r plus 1. So this one is also a constant, so we shall pull it out the summation, and it will be rp into 1 minus p or negative 1, and the summation of x is equal to 1 to infinity, then x plus r minus 1 factorial out of this whole thing, r factorial into x minus 1 factorial, then times p power negative 1, 1 minus p power r plus 1. So now we are going to try to make our powers into 1 later, and we shall let s is equal to r plus 1 and let w equal to x minus 1. So here our r is the same as s minus 1, and our x is going to be the same as w plus 1. So in this equation, where there is s, where there is r, we shall put this, and where there is x, we shall put this. So rp into 1 minus p. So now our summation will no longer be from x, but it will be from a w. So it will be w from 1 to infinity. Then where there is an x, we put w plus 1. Where there is an r, we put plus s minus 1, and then minus 1 factorial out of, where there is an r, you put s minus 1 factorial, where there is an x, you put w minus 1, then w plus 1, then minus this one factorial, times p, where there is an x minus 1, we put w, and where there is an r plus 1, we put our s. So you realize this one will go with this one, and then this one will go with this one. So we shall remain with something like this. 1 minus p or negative 1, summation from w is equal to 1 to infinity, is equal to w plus s minus 1 factorial out of w factorial into s minus 1 factorial, then p power w and 1 minus p power s. If you realize, this whole thing looks like a PMF, and you remember all PMF are equals to 1, so we shall have something looking like this: r p into 1 minus p power negative 1 times a 1, since we have a PMF here. So our mean will be rp into 1 minus p power negative 1. So we can rewrite it like this: minus p, which is our mean. So now we have to look for the variance. So var is always equal to x squared minus x into this. So right now we already have this, so it's just a matter of squaring it, but then we don't have the x squared, so we are going to look for the x squared for probability of x, small x, which is going to be equal to x squared into x plus r minus 1 into p power x into 1 minus p power r. So now we apply the summations. Summation of x squared, probability of x, is equal to the summation of x times x. Let's split this one. That's x plus r minus 1 into p power x into 1 minus p power r. So here, remember, it's always from x is equal to 0, infinity, x is equal to 0, infinity. So now we are going to apply the one with a 0 here, 0 to the summation of x is equal to 0 to infinity. And then we have already applied them, so it will be 0 squared, then x plus r minus 1 into p power x to 1 minus p power r. So here, and then we shall add that one from summation from x is equal to 1 to infinity, then put the same thing, x plus r minus 1 p power x 1 minus p power r. So this 0 squared times this whole thing will disappear. Then we shall remain with the summation from x is equal to 1 to infinity. Then x times x, that's an x squared, into x plus r minus 1, combination r minus 1, then p power x into 1 minus p power r. So we are going to change this combination into a factorial, which will look like summation of x minus p from 1 to infinity, x times x plus r minus 1 factorial out of r minus 1 factorial into x plus r minus 1 minus, this is a minus, x minus r minus 1 factorial, then times p x into 1 minus p power r. So if you are to realize, this r will go with this r, and then this negative 1 will go with this positive 1. So remaining something like, where we shall remain with an x factorial here. So on the next step, I want to expand this x factorial and at the same time split the powers. So it will be x is equal to 1 to infinity, x times x, then x plus r minus 1 factorial. And I'm splitting the powers out of r minus 1 factorial, then x into x minus 1. I've expanded the x factorial, and now I'm going to split the powers. P power 1 times p power x minus 1, bring us back to here, and then 1 minus p power negative 1 into 1 minus p power r plus 1 to also bring us back to here. So you realize this x will go with one of the x's here, and then this constant and this constant will move outside the summation. So this will be p into 1 minus p power negative 1 to the summation of x from 1 to infinity to x, then times x plus r minus 1 infinity f factorial out of r minus 1 factorial into r minus 1 factorial, then times p power x minus 1, and then into 1 minus p power r plus 1. So here we are going to do the other method we used of 1 out of r minus 1 factorial is the same as r out of r factorial, which we are going to put here. So it will be like p into 1 minus p or negative 1, and the summation from x is equal to 1 to infinity x times x plus r minus 1 factorial out of, after affecting it, we have our r here and our r factorial into x minus 1 factorial, and with a p or x minus 1 and 1 minus p or r plus 1. So here we're going to look for one letter that can summarize this. So it will be s is equal to r plus 1 and w is equal to x minus 1. So r is going to be equal to s minus 1, and then x is going to be equal to w plus 1. So wherever you see an x here, we shall replace it with a w plus 1, and where you see an r, we shall replace it with an s minus 1. So the next thing will look like, and remember we are now from a w to infinity, so the next step will be, and we have this, since this is a constant, we shall also move it out, and it will be like r p into 1 minus p or negative 1, then the summation of w is equal to 1 to infinity. It's going to be equal to this x, which is w plus 1 into w plus 1 plus r, which is s minus 1 factorial out of r, which is s minus 1 factorial into w plus 1 minus 1 factorial, then times where there is an x minus 1, we put a w, and then 1 minus p into where there is an r plus 1, we put an s. So this realize this one will go with this one, and then this one will go with this one. So we remain with an expression which looks like this: 1 minus p or negative 1, and the summation of w is equal to 1 infinity. Then I want us to bring this 1 at the end, so it will be a w into w plus s minus 1 factorial p or w into 1 minus p s, then plus our 1, which is going to be out of s minus 1 factorial w factorial. So if you to look at this very well, it looks like the expression of mean is say the one that gave us our mean. So here, since we are using s, so instead of writing an rp out of 1 minus p, we are going to make it equal to sp out of 1 minus p. So we shall have something like this, 1 minus p power negative 1, and this whole thing is equal to sp out of 1 minus p, then plus 1. So in our next step, we shall have something like this. So we look for the LCM of these two, which is 1 minus p. This one divided by this one. Before I do that, let me first replace the s with r minus r plus 1 into p. Then we shall apply the LCM on our next step, which is 1 out of p. So 1 out of 1 minus p. So for here, 1 divided by this, it will get a 0. It will get a 1, so it will be 1 times this whole thing, which is going to be pr plus p. And then here, it will be this similar thing, 1 minus 1 divided by this one, it will be 1 minus p, which is going to be equal to 1 minus p. So in our next step, if you realize this p and this p will cancel, so we shall remain with pr plus 1 out of 1 minus p. So it will be rp into 1 minus p power negative 1 times this, which is pr plus 1 out of 1 minus p. So this thing is the same as rp out of 1 minus p times p r plus 1 out of 1 minus p. So you realize the LCM is the same, so the denominators are the same, so it will be the same thing. So it will be this one times this, which is rp squared plus rp. So this is our final thing for e of x squared, rp squared plus rp out of 1 minus p. Remember, we are looking for variance, which is x squared minus the e of x, the whole thing squared. Remember, we already have this, and then we also have this, so it's the matter of subtracting. So it will be r squared, this whole thing is squared, then plus rp out of 1 minus p, then minus our mean was rp out of 1 minus p out of 1 minus p, which is the whole thing squared. So rp squared plus rp out of 1 minus p minus, then we are going to square this whole thing, which is rp squared out of 1 minus p, also squared. So let's go back here a little bit. This one is multiplied into this one, so the final thing will be a square. Sorry about that. So this one is a square because we got this one times this one, and then this one times this one, so this thing is a square. So this one is also a square. So you realize that here we have similar denominators, so our LCM will be the same, which is 1 minus p squared, and then this one we shall rewrite it the way it is, squared plus rp minus rp squared. So you realize this one will cancel out to this one, and then rp out of 1 minus p squared will be our variance. Stop.